One-on-one with the vice president as she makes a stop in Columbus. What she has to say about the growing costs of life and the growing number of COVID-19 cases. And the governor defends the new Ohio voting map, why he says it creates competitive districts. Plus the push to help Ohio families cover the cost of taking care of a new baby or sick loved one. We look at a new bill that would guarantee family medical leave for all employees. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. As the nation celebrates Thanksgiving, there could be a portion of gratitude for how states across the nation will benefit from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Ohio benefits to the tune of more than $10 billion over the next 5 years for investments including roadways, railways, broadband, and even water lines. There was a cross-country victory march by President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, who talked with 10 TV's Andrew Kinsey about how our state will benefit.
Let me start with the infrastructure deal, now law the president signed Monday. Talk about what this means for small businesses and, more importantly, those minority business owners that struggled through this pandemic.
Well, you know, a large part of the work that we have been doing as an administration has been focused on equity and equitable outcomes for any investment we make, because we know, and the pandemic actually highlighted, that there are disparities based on race. So, for example, we are paying attention to the fact that we are going to create millions of jobs through our Infrastructure Act now, and we want to make sure that there is an equitable distribution of the resources and the populations and communities that benefit from that. So we will actually be tracking it. And I think that what's really important is to recognize that when you look at places like Columbus, Ohio, we are talking about an incredible amount of work that can be done, for which there are skilled workers, many of whom are being trained by labor unions such as the building trades, the plumbers and the pipe fitters. And so we want to make sure that we get the resources to the folks so we can build up the skills and then build back up our country.
We're talking about building and working. Let's talk about the inflation the U.S. is experiencing right now. Many across the country, even here in Central Ohio, feeling the economic pinch. It's going to be a more expensive Thanksgiving, more expensive Christmas. What is the administration doing to help? And can you guarantee that the new spending in this Build Back Better plan won't exacerbate the inflation problem that they're seeing?
So the president and I are very, very, very much focused on what we need to do, dealing with the fact that the price of gas has gone up, the price of groceries has gone up, and we want to bring that down, including bring the cost of living down. You know, that's what inflation means. It means that in its most simple point is that everything costs more. Well, Build Back Better is about saying, let's bring down the cost of child care. Let's bring down the cost of elder care. Let's bring down the cost of prescription drugs so that folks who have diabetes are not paying more than $35 a month for their insulin. Let's bring down the cost of housing. That's what we will accomplish when we pass the Build Back Better agenda. And in fact, you know, big economists from Moody's and 17 Nobel laureates who are economists have all said that our agenda is going to actually strengthen the economy and bring down costs.
Madam Vice President, we're still wearing these masks,
yes.
And we are heading into the holidays, and health experts are concerned about a second wave of the Delta variant. Is the administration doing enough to get control on this, or what else can be done?
More people need to get vaccinated. That's the bottom line. Look, the vaccines are safe, they are free, and they will save people's lives. And now, thankfully, children can get vaccinated, and we want to encourage every parent and every individual, get vaccinated. It will save your life. And that is one of the ways that we have seen that we can get in front of and finally get rid of what has been the impact of this virus on our lives, on our livelihoods, on our communities, on just the loss of normalcy. Parents who have had to go through so much in terms of what this means about their children's education. We are all ready to get beyond this pandemic, but we all have a role to play. And a big part of our individual responsibility is to do everything we can to be safe, to be healthy, and that includes getting vaccinated.
About 8 months ago, you were tasked with the job of coming up with a solution for migration, immigration, border security. Many would say we're not where we should be a year later here. Would you agree or disagree with that, and any plans to go down to the U.S. border?
So having been to the U.S. border, having been to Guatemala, having conversations that I've had with everyone from Boris Johnson of the United Kingdom to just yesterday talking with the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of Mexico, and having been in France last week talking with the President of France. We have got to deal with the fact that a big part of migration around the world, including what we are seeing here in the United States, has to do with people who are fleeing their countries of origin, either because they are fleeing harm or because they have no opportunities that allow them to satisfy their basic needs. So what we have to do is deal, yes, with the short-term issue of dealing with what's going on at the border. If we really want to be smart, we also have to be invested in what's going to be a long-term, not overnight solution, but it's about dealing with the root causes of why people leave their homes. And that includes an investment in, for us as the United States, the region of the Western Hemisphere, and doing what we can to address the root causes of migration. And so that's what we're focused on. We're seeing great progress, but you can't just flip a switch.
It was lights, camera, action for lawmakers who were part of a video made to highlight what they call big wins from that infrastructure bill signing, including some familiar faces from Ohio.
This is just a great day.
The bipartisan infrastructure bill is, I mean, this is truly intergenerational change we're talking about.
Will have a big impact in creating millions of good-paying union jobs.
It's a great way of connecting people to communities, to business, all with infrastructure.
It's going to impact every city and town and village.
That's why this bill is so important for American workers, for American public transit, for all of us.
Every place is going to have things that they've been waiting for get done.
I'm really, really glad that we got this done in a bipartisan way.
It's a real cause for celebration.
And while this was a bipartisan effort, Dan Luschek, who is the Ohio Communications Director of the RNC, says Republicans are still concerned about the cost. The GOP also said there is a lack of transparency when it comes to spending.
So when you talk about roads and bridges and real infrastructure, you know, that's something that most Republicans support. When you start spending trillions of dollars and there's not accountability on where that money is being spent, that's where Republicans tend to pause, and they really want to know, you know, where is every, you know, dollar of this being spent, because we're accountable to the taxpayers, and the taxpayers in this state deserve to know where every penny is being spent that they're sending to Washington. Moving forward, you know, the families of Ohio, the workers in Ohio, they're feeling the impacts of this administration. They are feeling the rising prices at the gas pumps. They're feeling rising prices at the grocery store. This is set to be one of the most expensive holiday seasons that we've seen. And that's a result of inflation from these large spending bills. Now, as I said, maybe there is some in this bill that is good and necessary, and the investments should be made. But as we look at the overall, you know, agenda of this administration, we're very concerned that they continue to tax and spend without regard for the impact that it's having on Ohio's families. Real wages are down for workers, and this is going to have long-term impacts.
Governor Mike DeWine is defending his signature on a controversial bill that could affect how much your vote matters. The governor signed a map splitting Ohio up into new voting districts. Now there are lawsuits claiming they're biased against Democrats. DeWine says the map had more competitive districts.
It splits fewer cities, splits fewer counties, has more communities of interest that are not split up. So on all four of those counts, the Republican map was better. If you look at the criticism of our congressional maps across the country over the last, 10, 20 years, criticism by people who have written thoughtful stories. The number one concern has always been that there are not very many congressional districts that are competitive. The Republican proposed map, the bill that I signed, has more competitive districts than the Democrat proposal, has more competitive districts than the current districts that exist today. So I think competitive districts is important. And this map, the bill that I signed, has a significant number of competitive districts.
Other legal challenges to the map are expected. They can be filed at the Ohio Supreme Court or in federal court if a violation of the Voting Rights Act is alleged. The Ohio Department of Health is warning people to get vaccinated against COVID-19 as the state had an increase in cases and hospitalizations this week. ODH says the highest level of transmission remains in counties with the lowest vaccination rates.
It's clear that a higher vaccination rate is correlated with a lower case rate. Simply put, it's a further demonstration of the protective impact of vaccination and I hope a further encouragement for every Ohioan to make the choice to get the vaccine. Simply stated, unvaccinated Ohioans remain vulnerable to COVID-19 and its many after effects because they haven't yet chosen to get vaccinated, while those who are vaccinated are remarkably well protected, particularly against severe disease and death from COVID-19. So as we look forward to the coming holiday season, as well as cold and flu season, please, if you aren't yet vaccinated, choose to get the vaccine. And if you are fully vaccinated and are now eligible for a booster, make an appointment or walk in at one of the many vaccine providers who accept walk-ins across the state. Staying up to date on immunizations has been an essential part of maintaining our well-being for decades. And getting the COVID-19 vaccines, as well as boosters, represents one of the best ways we can continue to protect our health.
An important reminder about the state's Vax to School program. Right now, there are more than 133,000 entries to win a scholarship. Throughout next week, 75 $10,000 scholarships will be announced. This starts tomorrow, and winners will be announced every day at around 3:30 in the afternoon. Taking time off work after having a baby isn't always an option for people in Ohio.
Someone should not have to choose between a paycheck and taking care of those needs.
Up next, a look at the new bill on the table that would change that and the opposition it's already facing.
To provide some perspective, since 2018, troopers have had contact with over 3 million motorists, 3 million traffic stops. The protection of our constitutional and civil rights of people we serve is of paramount concern to the division. We have in written policy that during all law enforcement contacts, troopers conduct business in a professional manner and do not engage in any behavior, and I'll underscore that, any behavior, or activity that constitutes bias-based policing. It took a while to get this done. There are many layers and facets to it. The transition started November 2nd here in the Columbus District, and as the governor just said, the new system will be fully integrated and in play by May of next year. We critically reviewed all ranks and positions to determine the need for the issuance of body cameras and in-car systems. It was determined that all ranks from field trooper through staff lieutenant, operational positions, motor carrier enforcement inspectors and supervisors, OSHP police officers, Ohio Investigative Unit agents, and agents in charge will be wearing body cameras.
We've reported before on how the cameras will be integrated into the other cameras already in use by the Highway Patrol. One in the front of the patrol car and one in the back. They are all activated when the lights turn on, but they are always recording. Starting next year, all Ohio State Highway Patrol troopers will wear body cameras. Governor DeWine said he set aside $10 million in the 2022 operating budget to help local agencies pay for new body cam programs. The superintendent of the Ohio State Highway Patrol says all operational officers will have to wear the cameras. A bill is making its way through the State House that would protect working families if somebody gets sick. House Bill 491 would establish an insurance program for workers who have to take time off for health issues. It would guarantee paid medical leave for all. The money would come out of the workers' paychecks. It would also cover time off for the birth or adoption of a new baby or the death of a child. It was advanced in part by Democratic State Representative Allison Russo. She explains more about how it works.
So this program is a state program. It would work very much like our uninsurance program works. It would be funded through premiums that are paid by the employee. We know from actuarial analysis of these types of programs in other states that we're talking about $25 to $30 per year per employee. So it is very cost effective, particularly for low-wage workers who often don't have access to this benefit, but also for many of our small businesses who want to offer these types of programs, but find it very cost prohibitive to do it because they are very limited in the options that they have available to them.
Representative Russo says the bill has faced some opposition from Republicans. They claim the bill unfairly taxes workers to pay for other people's medical emergencies. Ohio's bill is similar in part to the Build Back Better bill currently making its way through Washington, which also tries to establish paid family medical leave. Ohio's tried and failed to pass paid family medical leave multiple times. A mission is underway to end hair discrimination statewide with what's called the Crown Act. We speak with 3 prominent women about their natural hair and the need for change. Welcome back. Right now, there is a push to stop hair discrimination against people of color who wear their hair natural. In July, Ohio Representative Juanita Brent reintroduced legislation to do just that. Now, she and other lawmakers are trying to get more support for the measure. We're talking about the Crown Act. CROWN is an acronym that stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. Right now, about a dozen states and several cities, including Columbus, have laws that make it illegal to discriminate against natural hair. But there's nothing on the books at the state level in our state right now. Producer Angel Brock and reporter Krista Frost spent weeks looking into how the Crown Act could change lives.
We did relaxers, and we learned how to do a relaxer on a curly headed mannequin.
That's the extent of what Cassidy Womack learned about natural hair in cosmetology school, which came in handy when she was working with clients at her first job after school.
Any and every texture. They loose textures, tight coils, everything. And then back then I was doing a lot of relaxers.
Fast forward 7 years.
I don't have one single relaxed client.
That's something she's proud of, helping each person who comes to her understand how to care for their hair so they don't feel like this.
A lot of them have had kind of a fear around being natural and just fully embracing it. You know, they want to look professional. They want to look like they can fit in as well.
That's a feeling Columbus City Council member Shayla Favors says she hopes to end.
But what history has shown us and what my personal experience has taught me is that over the years we have had to conform in order to fit the majority standards.
Favor helped to pass the Crown Act in Columbus earlier this year and is now helping in the effort to propose and pass the law statewide.
The passage of the Crown Act ensures that folks can show up as they are to work with their hairstyles of their choosing and not be discriminated against.
Something Womack says she's ready for her clients to experience.
It can now give people maybe a bit more confidence going into a professional workplace to know that at least they cannot be held back from the same opportunities as someone else because of the style that they chose or their hair texture.
And Krista Frost also talked with 3 prominent Ohio women who say they've experienced hair discrimination firsthand. These are women we know. Janelle Coleman, Vice President of Corporate Philanthropy and Community Engagement for AEP, Stephanie Hightower, Columbus Urban League President and CEO, and former 10 TV anchor Angela Pace. All are rocking natural hairstyles, but getting there, they say, took decades.
All right, so ladies, it's Saturday night. You're a little girl. What's happening?
My mother is finishing up braiding my hair because it was an all-day process on Saturday.
Mine was hot comb on the stove and me flinching because I don't want her to burn my ear.
Steph, let's start with you. How old were you when you got your first relaxer?
Oh gosh, probably by the time they start making relaxers, my mother was running to the store to get me one.
The first chemical that I had in my hair was a Jerry curl. And I was entering middle school.
What was it that made you decide, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore?
It was just the day came and I was ready, and I went into her salon and sat in the chair and I said, today's the day, let's do it. And she cut all of my hair off. I mean, it was like a buzz cut, and I absolutely loved it. It was just a sense of freedom.
And it was 1976, and I decided, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I said, cut out my relaxed hair. And I had this, we call it the TWA, a teeny weeny afro. And my grandmother, who was from the South and believed that a woman's hair is her crowning glory, took one look at me, went upstairs, went to bed. We didn't see her for 3 days. I mean, she was traumatized. For me, it was empowering. What kinds of issues have you had, especially on the professional level, with your natural hair?
What the consultants and the political people were telling me was absolutely true. I didn't represent what the norm of what the majority community felt like a black politician needed to look like. And so, you know, with braids coming down and darks, that was almost like I wasn't votable.
But where it came into play mostly was around people's curiosity, right? So I have enough to deal with at work. And you come to the office and people are peppering you with questions about your hair.
When I first started reporting, I'm working at a local TV station that shall remain nameless, and the vice president in charge of news came to town. He said, let's talk about your look. Okay. You know, we got to do something about those teeth, first of all, but let's talk about your hair. And I said, my hair? What's wrong with my hair? Well, it's just so ethnic. And I said, well, thank you very much for your advice. I got up, I went to the ladies' room, and I cried for 20 minutes. And then the next week, I made an appointment and got my hair straightened, and I wore it relaxed for the entire 1.5 million years that I was on TV. What would you say to people who are not people of color? What do they need to know about black women and their hair?
Our hair is our crown, and you wouldn't walk up to the queen and touch her crown.
And you can see the entire conversation online at 10tv.com. Believe me, there's more. In the meantime, we thank you all so much for joining us today. Remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.